Gary Roberts on TV. Here we are sitting in the home of executive producer Dan Ilani with Game of Arms. This is exclusive, right? You haven't gone on camera talking to anybody
This
yet?
is exclusive.
Exclusive! You know how we love exclusive. Arm TV loves exclusive stuff.
This is it.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing really well.
You say we can't use the word official, but can we get as close to, for the arm wrestlers at home, they're all chomping at the bit to hear that, yes, the season 2 is a go.
Season 2 is looking really good with AMC. They've been thrilled with the ratings for season 1. The show's been really well received. A lot of critical acclaim. As you know, AMC does really high-level type of programming, and they've been really happy with the show. So they now want us to start casting for season 2.
Arm wrestlers, you hear that? He didn't give 100, but I would take that for me. So what does that mean for the arm wrestlers? I'm excited because it can't get any more clearly defined. If you think you're an arm wrestler at home, you think you have some charisma, and you're a good arm wrestler, I think you got to, correct me if I'm wrong, can you have great charisma, but never win an arm wrestling match and still get on Game of Arms?
You can. You can. I mean, we're not casting for people's grandmothers, but we are casting all levels, you know? I mean, the show, you guys have seen the show. Obviously, you know there's world champs on that show, and then there's guys who are more green, who are more starting out. You know, we definitely look for a balance. But we're looking to tell the story of arm wrestling and of arm wrestlers. And so not everyone in arm wrestling is a world champion, but they're still an arm wrestler. And arm wrestling wouldn't be the sport that it is if it didn't have all kinds of people participating in it.
It's a wide range of all economic backgrounds, all skill levels, all personalities. And to me, the cream of the crop, the best of the best, is kind of a small niche.
Of course.
Like, they dominate everyone else, and not everyone's the most amazing personality. So you've got to kind of dig deeper levels to get. So really what you're looking for is perfect for the arm wrestlers, because if you're sitting at home and you have, you think you have a good personality, you're not shy on camera because Arm TV's been sticking the camera in your face for years. Literally, if they come to Vegas and they're awesome, at least they stand out. They make an impression in your mind. Like, literally, they could get on television, too. Is it that simple?
Absolutely. I'd say there's even more opportunity than I think you're making it sound, because it's not just for the loud, funny guy. It's not just for the guy who screams at matches. We have guys on the show right now who are quieter guys, who are a little more introspective, who, you know, are they're quiet, but they pop, you know, in the show, and they're interesting characters. And so we're definitely looking for, if you're loud and funny, great. If you're an asshole, maybe that's great too. If you're a super nice guy who's a mentor to your team and to people around you, interesting. You know,
I never think about that. I was thinking about the loud, because I'm loud. I was thinking about the loudest guy in the room gets the. But really, when it comes to a show, you can't have 12 loud guys.
Yeah,
you have a balance of little.
Yeah, you
gotta have a coach.
Exactly, you need a balance, and you know, it's sometimes the most interesting guy in the room isn't the loudest guy. You know, and so for us, it's been about finding really the whole spectrum of what arm wrestlers are and who arm wrestlers are. And you can see from our show, it's not just that we're in New York and we're in Baton Rouge and we're in Northern California and around the country, but there's old guys, young guys, big guys, little guys.
There's a dude at home, or woman, whatever, who thinks they never would even be the type of person who would be on television or could be on a show like this, but they love arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Who may never even played some. They're watching the show at home like a fan. There's right now somebody watching who thinks, I would never be on that.
Right.
That could be the guy or gal that you were looking for.
That could be the next star. And so, you know, I think that a lot of times people don't know if they're interesting or not. That's what we do.
Yeah.
You know, we meet people. You do that all the time. And we find that with people. I'd say the one thing you have to bring to the show is some absurd passion for the sport. If you don't live and eat and breathe arm wrestling, maybe it's not for you.
On the ratings, the show debuted to twice the numbers that were expected on AMC. Is that what I'm understanding?
The show opened, I'd say, almost 4 times the projected number. AMC did a tremendous amount of promotion. It's obviously really cool. The show's still finding its audience. For AMC non-scripted television, or reality TV, as a lot of people call it, is new. And so it's still finding its audience, but they've done so much promotion, everything from billboards around the country to just running promotional spots nonstop during The Walking Dead, which is the #1 show on television, which about 20 million people watch every week. So the recognition for Game of Arms right now in the country is massive. It's hard to meet someone in America who doesn't know that there's an arm wrestling show on TV right now. And that's pretty cool. We, as producers of Game of Arms, have always tried to make as many friends in the arm wrestling community as we can. We want to really support the sport. We want to support arm wrestlers. We understand that this show is the beginning of pushing the sport into the mainstream and into the spotlight, and we take that responsibility really seriously. We want to do right by our cast, and we want to do right by the sport. The WAL's been they've reached out to us. They've invited us. They've invited us to come and do this casting at their event, which is really great and exciting to meet so many arm wrestlers in one place. As far as whether they're filming their leagues or not, I don't know exactly what their big plans are for television. I know that, like a lot of events, like a lot of sports events, I think if you're on the premises, they're doing some filming. But it's not for television, as far as I know right now.
Why arm wrestling wasn't presented in a more professional manner. This is the one little sticking point. And I tried to tell him, I said, like, if you're taking the mass public who doesn't know arm wrestling exists yet, and you're now exposing it to them, why not start with an underground level? Right. That way you have some place to go.
Right.
If you came out advertising Game of Arms as a Super Bowl,
exactly,
and was in the bar, and people would be confused.
The way we see arm wrestling is it is an underground sport, because before Game of Arms, how many people would say to you, "Is that a real sport? Is that a real thing?" It was a sport that arm wrestlers knew about.
Yeah.
And so there's something about presenting the sport to the world as saying, "Well, look, this is underground. That's why you haven't heard of it. It's super cool. And here's the intensity, and here's the energy." And I think, we didn't follow every rule of every arm wrestling event out there, but I think we were very honest to the integrity of the sport in terms of what it is for people and what it means to people. And I think in many ways, arm wrestlers have come to us since the show has aired and said, wow, that's the most exciting version of arm wrestling that we've participated in ever, or that we've seen.
I love it.
And so that's what we went after, the spirit of arm wrestling. And that's how we see it as storytellers and as producers. We see it as this super cool sport.
So let's say it's a hit and you get 5 years out of seasons. Do you see progressing, slowly taking it? For instance, we've been in a meat factory. Do you see taking it as the sport evolved, as the story evolved, as the exposure evolved, to take it more of a mainstream feeling? Or you always want to keep it on the under?
But I think we're gonna follow. I think we're gonna follow the sport. I think we could end up with an episode that packs the Staples Center, but I don't think that you take arm wrestling to the Staples Center and arm wrestle in front of 20 people. I think that you have to build fans and build support for the sport. And then you move to the venues that you're ready for, in a way.
That's a great point, because right now, if you did advertise arm wrestling in the Staples Center, you might get all of Los Angeles, some California arm wrestlers. We'd fill up a little corner,
right?
But we wouldn't be able to fill up the stadium.
Right.
You're saying if one day we're having a tournament and literally we have to like keep people out of the doors, and we're like, okay, we need a bigger place, obviously.
Yeah.
Then you guys would follow. That would be a natural occurrence,
right?
And you would follow accordingly.
Yeah, and I mean, having been at the WAL event in Ohio, I thought that's a really cool next place for the sport to go. It was organized, it was official, it was not in a meat locker, it was not an abandoned warehouse, but it still had that sort of underground intensity that I think is where the sport should be right now, you know, which we thought was really cool.
Is it a hard process? Is it months?
I mean, the first time, and a lot of you met us on the road, or, you know, Ben Murray, who was out on the field meeting a lot of you guys in your hometowns. The first time it took a long time because we were uncovering the whole world. We were learning it and meeting people for the first time. I think having lived in the world now of arm wrestling, we know a lot of people. You know, a lot of arm wrestlers have been coming to us, wanting to be a part of the show. Unfortunately, we couldn't take everybody the first time around. You know, so in terms of the process, it's first really meeting people, getting them on tape. You know, it's not long casting interviews, but, you know, a couple of minutes. We go through those tapes. We pick out the people that we as producers think will work for the show, potentially. And it's not just, sometimes you could be great, but it's, you need to fit within the fabric of the show. And then it all goes to the network, and they have, obviously, at the end of the day, the final opinion on everything. And so we get their feedback, and it just becomes this collaborative process.
So how influential, I'm trying to understand your role in that. How influential is Mr. Dan Ilani in this process? If we're standing right here and I throw out a couple ideas, do you have any sway? You have any sway? Because speaking for the community, they'd love to see an additional team. They'd love to see a Canadian team featuring Devin Larrett and his crew up there. It would be awesome. They'd love to see the addition of at least one team having a female on it. They'd love to see, I would love to see, you have to be over a certain age to get some of the old salty dogs in there. There really is a whole underground of even the old cats that can battle. Right. And I would love to see that. Can you any of those ideas good? I'm not a TV guy.
Yeah, no, all those ideas are good. All those are ideas we've talked about. We'd be excited for any combination of those things. Obviously, the network has a tremendous amount of trust in me and my partners and my company and the guys who make the show. So, yeah, definitely, if we like you, that's going to go a long way. You
were in Ohio.
I was in Ohio.
Can we drop some names? Is there any guy that stood out that you said, this guy could be on television? Can we name drop?
I wouldn't want to do that.
No, I wouldn't want to do that. There's a couple guys. Doug Allen and
Doug Allen had an incredible performance at that WAL event.
I mean, does that kind of performance, does that stand out?
Absolutely.
So
he brought, not just did he have a tremendous day of arm wrestling, but he brought a lot of presence. He brought a lot of intensity, a lot of passion. It was exciting to watch him arm wrestle.
I mean, I was like, this guy's money. That's just my thing. I have a couple guys calling me saying, hey, come to my town. Let's make a little 5-minute promo of me and my team and why are we ready to be on the Game of Arms, and we're going to send it in. If guys do stuff like that, would you look at it?
Yeah, I mean, we would absolutely look at it. For us, our first choice is always to meet people in person. It helps us.
Basically, be in Vegas.
Being in Vegas is definitely a good thing. It's definitely good for us. It definitely helps us get exactly what we need. You know, I mean, you do these interviews all the time. You know, there's a reason you do them in person. You know, people could just interview themselves and send you in a tape. It's not the same.
What I noticed watching you specifically at the tournament in Ohio was the amount of passion. I mean, I've met over the years, not a ton, but I've met producers. They come in, they get excited, or people come in, you know, want to throw around the money. They think that they're going to find the next gold mine and hit it big. But typically, the difference between someone who fails and succeeds is what you brought up, the passion. If a producer doesn't have the passion, or if a financial backer doesn't have the passion, they don't feel it. The minute it doesn't hit gold, like the thing instantly, they're probably going to. And I noticed you were getting into these arm wrestling, man. I didn't look at a guy, a television producer, who's like, you know, judging and be like, hey, I want to have my return by 6 p.m. You were out there getting into the matches, like getting excited and having a good time. And I was like, what? Who's this guy? When did you find out about arm wrestling, and when did you realize you had a passion for it?
Well, one of my partners called me and my other partner up one day and said, you have to go on Netflix and look at this documentary called Pulling John. And he had seen this documentary, we all watched it, and we were all immediately fascinated by the world that we didn't know about. And from there, we started going to some local tournaments in California and in the area here, and met very early on Don Underwood and met Alan Fisher and shot some tape with them and really started feeling like there was something really interesting going on in this world. That was the beginning, you know, and from there, obviously, we've traveled a really long road to get here, and we were very fortunate that arm wrestlers believed in what we were trying to do and trusted us at a time when we couldn't promise anything, you know. For a really long time, we had to tell people, we can't promise you anything, but trust us, like we will at least do everything we can to try to make this a great show. The irony is that
many people have said that. Like I myself have said, we've heard that, trust. And 99 out of 100 times, people haven't come through, and yet you guys did.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can I just give a little plug? The producer of Pulling John, Sevan Matosin, my current boss,
great
CrossFit.
Guy. Yeah.
Just a little factoid. It was Father's Day 2003 that Sevan went to his first tournament to start kind of a general feeling out about arm wrestling. It was also my first tournament in a different part of California. And then we intersected paths while I was producing Arm TV and he was producing Pulling John. And so we literally found arm wrestling on the same day. And I work for him today. And currently we're sitting here, and you said you found from Pulling John. It's like, it's a weird world.
It really is.
Weaved in the interconnections of stuff. It's just crazy.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think teams kind of came to us pretty early. Again, it was all about how do you, well, yes, we have to make an entertaining show, but the integrity of the sport was always very important to us. But how do you introduce a new sport to a world that doesn't know anything about that sport, A, and B, doesn't really care? You know, I mean, if you think of how big soccer is around the world, it's the number one sport in the world. Americans just don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you can't sell through soccer into the U.S., how are you going to sell arm wrestling? It's tough, you know? So we looked at elements that work for people, you know, and a big part of what works in sports is being able to root for a region or a team. It's an easier thing to attach onto than in just individuals. With individuals, you have to know them. You have to know each person. But if you're from the Northeast, you can root for the Northeast.
Yeah,
you know, that's a kind of like an easier entry point into the sport. And so, you know, and what we found was, the second thing we found was, whether or not arm wrestlers are used to competing as a team, there's a level of camaraderie in the sport that you don't find even in team sports. arm wrestlers love each other. They hate each other. They love each other. But it really brings people together in a really cool way that we feel like the teams capture that.
Arm wrestlers, love it or hate it, in the sport, weight classes have always existed. One of the biggest kind of slap in the face for these guys was to adjust the fact that there was teams with no clear defined weight class, and the matchups people just couldn't, they're adjusting. They're like, okay, I'm getting into it. I understand that grandma, mom, dads, brothers and sisters at home don't necessarily understand the weight class thing. Yeah. This is matchups, the Goliath versus David situation,
It's a tough one because everyone watching this is going to have an opinion, and that might be different than my opinion. But the thing about weight classes is that I think it's something that was borrowed from other sports to begin with. It's not necessarily the right measurement for arm wrestling anyway. As you've seen on this show, little guys do beat big guys. Sometimes the size of your hand matters more than how much you weigh. Sometimes how long your arm is or how tall you are matters more than how much you weigh.
This sounds like you're coming from a seasoned What's going on? You have learned a thing or two about the sport of arm wrestling. I see.
Right. So, so to us it's like, yes, we didn't do weight classes, but a lot of thought was put into those matchups. And so you did see little guys beat big guys. You saw big guys beat little guys. You saw big guys beat big guys and little guys beat little guys. There's different levels of experience. There's different styles of arm wrestling. And I think ultimately arm wrestling is so cool that it's bigger than a weight class. It's like when you think about what you're doing when you approach that table and what your objective is, does it matter who's on the other side of that table? Really? It's about you, and it's about what you're bringing to that match, and so we think it's a really fun way to see the sport.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if you're going to develop characters and you're going to watch 25 guys, if you're going to be really strict about this guy can only arm wrestle a guy who weighs the same amount as him, then you also have fewer opportunities to see really cool matches.
Yeah, you're restricting your potential.
Yeah.
And you only have 25 guys. That is a finite amount of time and to produce an interview. Why not mix them up?
Yeah, but we wouldn't, to us it's like everybody out there is going to say, well, you guys are trying to make TV and, you're trying to make good storytelling. And that's what you care about because you're producers. But really it's for us, we really come from a place of like, it has to be authentic. It has to be real. Otherwise we can't tell that story. So we really do care a lot about is it real? And to us it's like, if big guys always beat little guys, then that's what you would see on TV right now. Right. You'd see every time we put a little guy against a big guy, the little guy would lose. Yeah. But that's not what happened.
Exactly. Well, what someone out there says, hey, so are these matches faked or staged? What would be your...
100% real.
So there's no influence...
Ask any arm wrestler that wrestled on that show. They are 100% real.
So as a producer, do you come in saying, hey, if Luke wins, this would be better for the story. Or if Luke loses, it would be better for the story. Hey, nudge, nudge.
No, there's zero nudge, nudge. Ever. And that's not only do we pride ourselves on not doing that, and because the teams that we work with are so used to making, shows in Iraq they've made military shows. They've made shows about, ice road trucking, about deadliest roads in the Himalayas, about crab fishing in the Bering Sea. And so when you're making that television in an environment where the first priority people have is not dying, their second priority is making a living, and somewhere at the bottom of the list is making television, you learn how to tell good stories without nudging people.
Right.
So for us, we knew early on that if one thing was faked in terms of a match, the community would never support this show. I don't know how it sounds, but there was something magical about arm wrestling that pulled every one of us in, just sucked us in right away. Where, we're television producers. We try to work only on projects that we're passionate about. My partners, as you guys all know, made Deadliest Catch and were the directors of Deadliest Catch and won multiple Emmy Awards for that show. And not only them, Matt and Ethan, who I think a lot of you know, but we've been really fortunate to build a team at our company from camera operators to editors to field producers and story producers, all who have really impressive backgrounds in media and in television. And still, whether it's movies or reality TV or scripted TV, most of what's out there is not good. And when you're an artist or when you're a producer, you try your best to work on the stuff that's really good. But at the end of the day, you have to pay bills. And so sometimes you work on stuff that's not so good or you're not as passionate about. And there was something about arm wrestling that from the very first day, everyone involved was just crazy passionate and was like, this is the show. Like, this is the next show that's going to be the best show on television. And that first day we shot, it was NorCal versus New York. We shot in NorCal. And we had that first episode 1 tournament where Kenny ends up going against Mike Cilieris. And every person in that room turned to each other and said, this is the best day of television we've ever made.
The guys on your team.
The guys on the team. Every camera guy and every person in that room that was involved with shooting that show that day looked at each other and said, oh my God. And these are guys who've lived on the Bering Sea, who've made shows all over the world. This was the most exciting, intense, energetic moment of television they've ever made. And it was all real.
No one can sit home and say, there's a lack of effort here.
Right.
I mean, it's clearly defined. These guys are making an effort to give arm wrestling all that they have, energy, time, and money, which the guys at home should just be so thankful. We've gone through years of droughts. That hasn't happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, a single episode of Game of Arms has more viewers than any arm wrestling tournament ever. Right? I mean, unless I don't know about something, So it's already, the sport is already in a completely different place in terms of recognition.
You know what I love about it? The only thing, the second thing that we can equate in the past, obviously Over the Top had a huge exposure. But with movies, you have a promotion, it comes, movie's released, you squeeze a good weekend out, and if it's almost like if you don't have that hit on opening weekend 1,
right,
the backers be like, we tried.
Right.
And they move on to the next one.
Right.
And it's kind of like it's awesome for like a second. And here it's like every week it's like hitting that same kind of energy.
Yeah.
And there's a different kind of, to me, if I look at, I tried to tell arm wrestlers this through my review, but to me, if I look at what Over the Top did for the sport of arm wrestling, with that one hit pow and then done, here with the pow, what kind of impact can we have long term? And then with the potential of another season, are you kidding me? You better be in Vegas, bitches. That's all I gotta say. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Can you give us any teasers for season 2 if it happens, or where you go, or something new, a little sampling? Just a little.
No, I think you're going to see some new faces. You're going to see a lot of great arm wrestling. You're going to maybe see some new locations. But that's about it right now. That's all I'm going to say. But
one final question. I was at the finale. I saw how much arm wrestling went on there. You can't get that into an hour. You must have been having a bitch trying to cut a show out of this.
It was a big job. It was a big job.
There's a lot left on the table. Is there going to be extras released where these guys can see the other stuff?
That's
It was filmed.
Yeah, I think you're going to see you're going to get to see some stuff, but there's going to be a lot more arm wrestling coming up in the next seasons, and you're going to see a ton of arm wrestling, and it's going to be exciting. We're excited.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Dan,
Thank you.
Was it?
That's great.
I felt like I covered a spectrum.
How did I do?
You were awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, brother.
All right.
Season 2. So we'll see you in Vegas. What's the date?
June 7th in Vegas. We're there. The tournament's June 7th. I think we're going to do a lot of our casting the night before during weigh-ins, June 6th, and then we'll be there all weekend.
Boom.
Cool.